Thank you, Anka. We'll just have a 10-second prayer that God delivers His word today. So we'll just bow our heads, ask Him to lead the talk. So, I know you guys have been going through Matthew 25:35 to 45, and for I was hungry. So you can see the icon here, for I was hungry and you fed me, for I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. And this one, for I was a stranger and you took me in. So that's today's topic. But before we get into it, I want to ask you guys a question. If you could narrow, it's an outside question. If you could narrow one big need that every human being needs deeply from inside. Love, like to be loved. Yeah. Belonging. Nice one. Yes. Anything else? Yeah. To be fed. That's a good one big need. I think, especially even in the Western world, to be loved and to belong is a big one, isn't it? Yes. So I agree. So every one of us deeply needs to be loved and to feel known and to feel to belong. But not just me, it's the person with you at work, the person next to you at church, the person making you coffee at the coffee shop. Everyone around us that we meet every day has that deep need to be loved and to belong. And to feel seen and known. And that's exactly what's missing in the Western world, as we said. And that's why you'll see that people are trying to find this love in very different ways. Some of them are okay, some of them are like drugs, other places that are not the best, but they are trying to fill that deep need to belong and to be loved. So it's serious, it's big, it's everywhere around us and in everyone we meet. And yes, we know that this deep need is engraved in every one of us because every human inside is yearning for that love that can only be filled by God, right? Like we can all agree that no one can fully fill it, right? Yet the verse that we're talking about is what it means is that we're God's living body in the world. So saying this, we are His living body and we are His ambassadors. And we need to reflect that love to people around us. It's a huge need. So, saying this, God created that need in every one of us. And we can see from God's life on earth, when Christ was on earth, that that's what He exactly did. That service of love, that type of service seems to be very close to God's heart. Like that one-on-one encounter with everyone, like the sick, the lame, the one with leprosy. You see in his life that this is what he did, that service of love. There's a service of teaching, the service of making Urban, and all of these have love, but that one-on-one little visits or that one-on-one encounters it seems to be very close to God's heart. We will read it together in a minute, but you guys know the part that we're talking about, for I was hungry and you fed me. What made the massive difference between the sheep and the goat? Why were they divided? And all those things included what? They were service of love, yes. So we see that service of love is serious. It's literally what separated the sheep from the goat. It's associated with our eternal life. So it's a huge part of our faith and our lives. So it's serious service. Okay, so yeah, and the other thing is that in that passage we see that God didn't ask people like, how many responsibilities did you have? How much money did you make? How much degrees did you have? It was literally, if you fed him through your brethren, if you gave him a drink, if you've welcomed him in, it's literally in that act of love service. And this is a nice quote from Mother Teresa. faith in action is love, and love in action is service. So I think something that resonates with me that I keep remembering, I had a patient, we'll talk a bit in a second about this, but I had a patient who says she claims to be a Christian, but she doesn't go to a church and she just sits at home. She's like, I don't need to read the Bible, I just talk to God like that. But I think the problem with that is literally faith in action is love. You can't just, like, you cannot love God without loving your brother next to you or the person you see at work. I know you've probably read this last time. Do we read it again? Can we? All right, we'll just read the passage again so we know where it stands. Who wants to read? Ben, do you want to read? Yeah. Yep. You can read. You can read the first part, and then Ben the second. Yeah.
Which one's the first part?
Oh, that's the first thing.
Okay. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it. It's you say the answer. Sure.
And then he also said to those on the left hand, oh, depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger and you did not take me in. Naked and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison you did not visit me. Then they also will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick in prison and did not minister to you? And then he will answer them, saying, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it unto me. You did not do it to me. Yeah.
So we can see that if we do these things, it's literally we're doing it to God. He says that you're doing it to me. And if we don't do it to them, it's like we're refusing to also do it to God. And it says here, like, the good will be blessed by God and they will come on his right side, and the others, it says, you cursed into the everlasting fire. So it literally determines eternal life, that concept, and living that life of love, service of love. So yeah, that's the conclusion from that introduction. You cannot love God without loving our brethren. There's a couple of nice fathers sayings. Saint Jerome says, every time you stretch your hand in donation, remember Christ. He moreover says, the real temple of Christ is the believer's soul. So let us ornament and close it, give it donations, and let us welcome Christ in, who is in this soul. Of what use are the walls decorated with precious stone if Christ is in poverty, in the fear of dying because of hunger? So, and then second one, St. John Chrysostom says, the one who cannot see Christ in his poor brother and sister cannot see Christ on the altar. So, I'll tell you actually, can I share a very quick personal story? I was going to share it later, but I'm going to share it now. So the idea of like you cannot see Christ in your brother and sister, you cannot see him in the altar. I had a story from work. So I work as a physio, and in my second job, we were doing a lot of pre-employment assessments. So you check people's like alcohol, whatever, hearing tests, functional tests. So it was 5:30 and it was Passion Week, and I really wanted to go to church. I did not want to like waste time. I was ready, and then this patient comes at 5:30, and my boss left already, and he has no name, no details, no record at all, and he's coming for a pre-employment. I was like, I can't find you. He's like, no, I'm here. And apparently that meant that I will do everything with paper. So I had to print printer was not working. And I was so annoyed. So I was just like not even looking at him. I usually am nice to the patients. But that time I was just like, I just want to go to church. I just want to go to church. Like I want to see God at church. Anyway, so I was really bad. Terrible Christian. So, and then when I was doing his assessment, like I was just very frustrated. Yeah, it's really bad. Not loving at all. And then when I was doing his wrist assessment, so I flipped his wrist and he had a mark, like a hole in his wrist. And I just dead stared at him. And then he was probably a normal person. I have no record of him, but it just reminded me that this could be Christ right in front of me. And I just, like, it was like a moment where I will never forget that I was not serving at work. I was just expecting that I will only see Christ at the church. But if I can't see him at work with my patient, I probably won't see him at church either, right? Like, my eyes won't be open to see him. So it's something I always remember. Anyways, so that's just a side story. Yeah. Okay, so now we come to the topic. So, for I was a stranger and you took me in. Okay, now if I ask you, who is a stranger? Let's start with the first question. Who is a stranger? What does it mean by stranger? Someone you don't know?
Yeah, someone you don't know.
Yep.
Yep.
Someone not known to you? So... Okay. Um, I think
Someone is in need,
who's
especially for homeless. He doesn't
Yep.
have to stay in.
someone who doesn't have a home.
Yeah.
Yep.
All others around me.
All others around you are strangers. So everyone around. Yes. Yep. Seeing the stranger around. Ben, do you want to say? Yeah. I can. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say anyone who's not part of the family could be
Yes,
regarded
could
as a
be a
stranger. Like
stranger.
I know it's hospitality, but
Yes. No, hospitality is a word that will come later. Yes. Okay. Can I ask a second question? What?
A stranger is especially for anyone you don't know him, and
Yes.
just because if you know him, someone friend, you can't help him because he's friend
Yes.
or family. But stranger is you don't know him anything, and just he's human being.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very true. So there's a difference between hospitality and fellowship. So that's what you're saying. Fellowship is mutual, you're friends, but a stranger is someone really you have no connection to. Okay, second question, because this one actually I did not understand. When I got the passage, I was like, that's a nice concept, but then I was like, it seems like the hungry has a visible, like a very touchable, like need. He needs food. The thirsty needs water. Why was a stranger included with them? Maybe he needs a home, but a stranger is a very wide word. So why did God include a stranger in that passage, do you think? What are the needs of a stranger? Because before you serve someone, you want to understand what does it look like.
when you're out on the road and you don't know anyone, you're going to need. You possibly might have those needs: food and water, and possibly yes, somewhere to stay maybe, or it's along the same lines, I guess.
Physical home, yeah. What else? If we think about it practically nowadays as well, what are the needs of a stranger?
He's not Christians, but he needs help, or just to treat him as he's a human being,
Yes.
even if he is not the same face, and you try to show him as Christ-like.
Yes, definitely. Maybe they don't have a place of belonging, so they have a need to belong. Anything else? Yes.
I think it's a commandment of Christ that we love one another.
It's the biggest commandment of Christ. Love your neighbor as yourself. So if I don't know the neighbor, and if I feel he's a stranger, then I'm not fulfilling the commandment. It's as simple as that. As Jesus wants to teach us that everyone from different backgrounds, different cultures, different language, different color, doesn't matter. He's a stranger in my culture, but he is my brother and sister in Christ, because we're all brothers and sisters. That's why the main fundamental of Christianity is the love of the stranger. So there's no stranger in Christianity. We're all one in the body and blood of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's true. Good. That's very good. So, yeah. So all what you guys said. So a stranger is someone who's not known, someone who's not a friend, someone who does not know anyone around them. They have no established relationships. They have no one to go to. They are newcomers sometimes to the church, or newcomers to work, wherever you are. When you go to a new place, you don't know anyone in the place, you're an outsider. So there's many ways that you can be a stranger. And sometimes a stranger it also could be, as you said, Lamay, like someone actually in the church that feels like a stranger. And we just focus on, like sometimes we focus on like newcomers as being the strangers, while there's also strangers around us that later on they also become strangers because they felt estranged. So yeah, seeing a stranger with a different eye. So that's good. Yeah, so that was just something I wanted to say. So at first glance, being a stranger doesn't seem like as severe as being hungry or sick or imprisoned. But the being a stranger is a deep form of human poverty. You feel like you don't belong. And it's a hard one. It's not a physical one, but it's a hard one. Yeah, so this was really, like, for me, this was the biggest thing I learned, because I was like, a stranger just needs a home, but it's deeper than that. A stranger feels loneliness, a deep sense of loneliness, no network of protection. They're very vulnerable. Like, if someone is new to a place, they don't know, like, they're very vulnerable. They don't know where to go for help. They have fear of being rejected, fear of not belonging, feel like if they are absent or they disappear, would anyone even notice? They are strangers. No one knows them. And they have, you know how in the beginning we said we all have a deep sense of being loved and known? So even for a stranger, it's even more. They're not known by anyone. So a stranger is definitely included in that passage for a reason.
Okay. Where does it go? Yeah, fear of being rejected. And this is even personal. When I have a sin in my life which is causing me shame, then I'm an absolute stranger.
Definitely.
Because I know that I will be rejected if people look at me and know exactly what's wrong with me. So a person who is feeling that he is not, although he is well known and he is very well recognized by everybody, but inside him or her, they are still feeling that they do not belong because of the life of sin they are living.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I agree. And there's a story I'll share at the end, but someone told me a real life story about this. So that's a very nice point, Uncle. Then this is a nice passage by Mother Teresa again. Does anyone want to read it? Anyone want to read it? Yeah. Just
The biggest disease today is not leprosy or cancer or tuberculosis, but rather the feeling of being unwanted, uncared for, deserted by everybody. The greatest evil is the lack of love and charity, the terrible indifference towards one's neighbor who lives at the roadside, the victim of exploitation, corruption, poverty, and disease.
Yeah. So sometimes it's different. So she comes from, like, I think her ministry work was in India mainly. So there's physical poverty here, but we miss that the Western world also, there's no like leprosy in that sense, or that, but that feeling of being unwanted and not belonging. Okay, why a stranger? So himself was a stranger. So he himself felt that feeling of being unwanted, rejected, a stranger physically when they ran to Egypt when he was young. He was physically like a stranger in Egypt. And then to the Jewish nation, even though he was Jewish, he was rejected by his own people and crucified. So he knows very well how it feels to be a stranger and in the corner. So yeah, when he says, "Where I was a stranger and you took me in," he's revealing that he's very present in the stranger next to me, and he feels that stranger. If someone feels like a stranger, you're in good company. Christ has been through it. Secondly, when we serve strangers, we become like Christ Himself. So as we said, He did make a point to go to people who were strange. So someone like the Samaritan woman, she was a stranger because of her sin and the sense of shame. He went to her one-on-one. He took her in, if that makes sense. Zacchaeus, he was also rejected because of his sin. The people who had leprosy, they were also excluded. He made a point to go to strangers. So we become like him when we do it. And in a way, we were also strangers to God because of our sin, and He took us into His kingdom. So He did that verse to us as well. So, like Saint Paul says, "Now therefore you're no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God." So if we think of it in a way, it's a very beautiful service that we're following the footsteps of Christ. He did that and He lived that, and even with us ourselves. Third thing is that what he says, when we serve a stranger, we see Christ Himself. Wait, sorry, I should probably ask you. Do you know examples from the Bible where someone welcomed a stranger and it was actually Christ? If you read it, you can say.
Abraham.
Yes, very good. Yes. So, do you guys know the story? So, Father Abraham was outside his tent, and it's like he's sitting outside the door at the heat of the day. This makes me contemplate, like, why is he sitting at the heat of the day? But when he saw strangers crossing by, he like ran to them and washed their feet and welcomed them and made them food. He doesn't even know them. Like, he doesn't know them, and it ended up being God, and he gave him the promise of the child. And then later we see St. Paul commenting on this, that brotherly love continue. Do not forget to entertain strangers, for by doing so, for so doing, having some have unwittingly entertained angels. So literally, when you serve a stranger, think of it that it's not just the stranger, you're actually serving Christ. When we do these things with faith that it's Christ we're doing it for, we're more motivated, you know? Reach out to do it. And then another person is Saint Bishoy. Do you guys know his story? No? So he was a monk. So I get uncle to say it. So he was a monk, but he's very beautiful. He's one of my favorite saints. But there's that particular story where he already saw Christ before, I think, that incident. But he told the other monks, God told him he's going to meet him at the mountain or something. Yes. So he told the other monks that he's going to meet God at the mountain, and they all ran. And then there was an older man or a cripple that couldn't like walk, and he asked the monks to help him. He's like, "Oh, can you take me with you?" And they said, "No, they are busy. They're going like me, going to work. No, we're going to meet Christ at the mountain." And they rushed and they didn't help the man. And then Saint Bishop, even though he was probably older, he carried him on his shoulder. And then it kept getting heavier and heavier, and then it got lighter. Is that correct? No? I think I read two different stories in that part. I read it into
The old man kept getting heavier and
Heavier.
heavier and heavier until a point where he couldn't carry him anymore. So he looked at him and he said, "Are you?" And Jesus straight away revealed himself to him.
Yes.
And
yes.
then he promised him that your body will not see decay because you were privileged to carry me.
Yes. But he carried someone who was struggling. Not, he didn't know it was Christ, but Christ was physically the person he helped. This story is actually so beautiful because what stops us sometimes from serving is the monks didn't stop because they were rushing. It was out of their way. But Saint Bishoy wasn't scared. He wasn't scared to stop and help someone else because God is with him already. He's not scared. He doesn't consider it a waste of time to stop and help a brethren. And he literally saw Christ there. And he literally saw Christ there when he stopped and made the time for another person. And fourth thing I want to say is what Mrame said actually, it's a commandment to be hospitable. One of the episodes, so there's this is from a series by Father Anthony Messa. He was talking about living hospitality, if you guys want to listen to it. But he was saying this passage from 1 Peter. He's saying it's during the time of persecution, like people are dying for the faith. And then he literally puts the verse there. But the end of all times is at hand. Therefore be serious and watchful in your prayers. And above all things have fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins. And then he says, be hospitable to one another without grumbling, as each one has received the gift ministered to one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. And it's just crazy because they are in the middle of persecution. They're probably dying. They're waiting for the second coming. And then he makes a point to mention, be hospitable to one another without grumbling. And apparently, I didn't know this as well, but I saw it in the sermon. Philoxenia is a translation of hospitality in Greek, and it literally means love of a stranger. Philos means love, and xenia means a stranger. So hospitality is not a love of a friend, but a stranger to you. So we can see that it's a commandment, and it's not just when you're free or when you're not dying. It's literally in the middle of persecution. He makes a point to remain hospitable to one another. Yep. Okay, so now that we introduced that part, I want to ask you, have you guys felt before like you were a stranger at a certain point in time? Yes? Okay. And what did you need the most? What made the huge impact for you when you felt like a stranger?
Well, I just remember being hitchhiking once when I was young, and a guy actually took me back to his place and put me up for the night and made me a cut lunch in the morning.
That's very nice. Yes.
And it felt real good because it gave me rest and I could continue the journey later on. Yeah. Had a lot of experiences like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he physically gave you like place to stay. Yeah. Yep.
He trusted me that I wasn't some dodgy
Person, yes.
and that's the feeling you do get in the West. You think, oh, he's a bit dodgy. I won't give him a lift, but it's probably not the best way to be because it could be just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, quite an innocent person that has no bad intentions. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the media seems to blow it out of proportion a lot of times. Every second person's a criminal, you know, but you'd be
But
surprised.
he gave you like trust or unconditional positive regard without knowing you, and that felt good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, he was the one who done the right thing. I was the guy trying to be the Christian. But yeah, he obviously would have been.
But it's
rewarded.
good. It's good to reflect when you're in the city, when you're in the shoes of that person. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? You moved a lot of places. You would know how. Yeah. I'm like, wait.
So I traveled a lot or moved a lot. And so the thing that stood out for me or made me feel comfortable is when people smile to my face and
Yeah.
try to get to know me and actually spend time with me. So yeah.
You were gonna say something.
It's my story of a true story. I remember I was very young boy, and I was traveling to Ethiopia to come to Kenya And in the Ethiopian and Kenya border, there is a church. And I don't know anyone, just I prayed and to cross the border. And I passed the border and I don't know anyone. I didn't speak the language, but I met one person. He want to go to America,
Mhm.
but he couldn't go through Ethiopia because he had some issue.
Mhm.
But when I was there and I don't have enough money, the guy is just, he saw me and he talked to me, you will go with me. And I was planning to go with a lorry on the top, but he paid for me to be with him. He paid for my travel tickets.
Aw.
And every step, there is a lot of policies. Every time they're checking you, they have to get some money. And each step, he's paying for me and for him. And when you reach for Nairobi, because he has a cousin who want to go to some area, he gave me enough money for me.
Wow.
He gave me to some people to help me more. And he left. And that people, they helped me a lot. And now I stay working a little while, and after that, I came to Australia. But when he went away, I don't know him. He doesn't know me, but we know just we are Ethiopians. He helped me a lot. Even before he go to Ethiopia, he gave me a call. Again, he gave me some money and he gave me encouraged me a lot of things. He did ask for me. Also, the things when I was in Ethiopia border, there is a church, Emmanuel Church, like we call it Medani Alam. I was praying. I don't have anyone. Please help me, God. And when I go to Kenya on the next, I pray on Thursday. I reach in Nairobi in Saturday. That is after Good Friday.
Mm.
Good Friday on the next on Saturday. And the people, they find me and they told me, you are very tired. You have to sleep. I know, no, because they are preparing to go to church. I went with them. And when I was in church, I was very tired because the Ethiopia church is long service. And I tried to, I struggled with them. I was sleeping all night. They are in the mass. I was sleeping all night on the church. And even the bishop, he was in Sentis. When he come to my area, people, they try to wake me up.
Mm.
The bishop said, don't touch him, don't touch him.
Oh,
And
like leave him to
I
sleep.
was sleeping all night, until the program is finished. I was sleeping, and that is, I was in a strange. Someone is helping me.
That's very beautiful. Hmm. No, I like that. That's a very living story of welcoming a stranger. Anyone else? That's funny. That reminded me those stories because I have to share this, I think, because one of my patients on Friday, she shared that story without me asking. So I think I should share it. But she said her blue care nurse, she said so she was talking to me about how she taught her kids that they take the 10 cents can and then they save from it and then they get something for someone in need. And then she shared with me that story that another nurse told her. She was going to her car, that nurse, and then she found someone standing at her car. And then she was like a bit scared, like, what's that? And then that guy told her, do you have any hot food or something, like any food for me? And then I don't know, she was telling my patient, I don't know how she got the courage. She's like, I'm gonna make you food and a drink, and like she brought him to her family at home and gave him a place to stay at night, and then let him in the morning with some food. So it was like very unique. Like I don't hear these stories much, so that's very good. Okay. Now that we've felt how it is to be a stranger ourselves, how do we practically serve a stranger on an individual level? You can give very simple examples, like A smile, yes. So this could be as simple as that. That's what made Nancy feel welcome. That's yes. Yes, Lamai.
Yeah, thanks, man. I was just going to share something to answer how can we practically do that. So I feel sometimes like this is just my own personal experience. When I see someone that I don't know, first thing I do is I remind myself that he is the son or daughter of God, as in like we're all the same. There's no one higher than one another or lower than one another. We're all the same. Just someone happens to be luckier and smarter and stronger and richer. That one is not. So, but that's fine because God loves us all the same. So one lesson to self to me is when I see someone that I don't know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I do to them, he will not be loved any less or more. I remind myself of that always. So God, for example, loves whoever I see as a stranger. At the end of the day, he could go to heaven, I can not go to heaven, or he can go to heaven. Obviously, heaven is at different levels. You never know. He's good, like Lazarus, for example, and how he was being forgotten by his master, etc. So when I look at a stranger to me, it doesn't mean they are a stranger. They are because it's the same God of him is me.
Unto God, yes.
And God told us, "I will be with you forever till the end of time." This is the last verse of the Bible, of the Bible. So we all know that we're all the same. We're all loved by someone up there. It doesn't matter if I give them the right thing and feed them and give them water, etc. This is for me to get the benefit of. At the end of the day, God is gonna love them regardless of me to them. So I'd
whatever
rather.
I offer, he's gonna.
Yeah, it doesn't
He's
matter
gonna
what I
look
offer.
after
Even
me.
if I don't offer anything, God doesn't need me. Whatever I do is actually for my own benefit, not for their benefit, because God is kind. He will love them as much as He loves me, and He will give them anything that they need and in abundance, regardless of what I do. What I do is for me to benefit from, not for them.
Yes.
This is just my own personal reflection. And when I see someone I don't know, we just love them as they are.
Definitely. Yes. I'm good, sir.
One thing I personally experienced, I'm the negative side. When somebody is complaining about pain, give them an ear and don't rebuke them. Don't even suggest anything. Just listen. Accommodate people. Accommodate the pain. Accommodate. Just lend an ear. Sometimes an ear is better than a house.
That's true. Sometimes that's what a stranger needs, yes. Anything else? No, that's a very good point. So I forgot I was going to ask like at work and at home and at the church, but we'll come to that. I will share something with you in a minute, but I also want to, we talked about individual hospitality or serving the stranger on an individual level. There's also on a church level. If you give me a description of a church that looks hospitable, like how would that look like? How would you describe it?
Well, it sort of looked like that this morning a bit. There was a few people there this morning that came, and it definitely feels right to go and talk to them to make them feel welcome and just follow them up instead of just ignoring them. That'd be the way to definitely reach out. Yeah.
Definitely. And we are the church. So if every one of us does it, it's the church is doing it. Does that make sense? So you were going to say something?
Yeah, this meeting is a good representation of hospitality.
Yeah.
You know, the coffee is great.
Coffee is great, yes.
Yeah. Like we feel not just as individuals when we come to taste the Lord, we feel as if we're one family, you know, brought together here by God.
Definitely. Feel welcome. Yes.
Yeah, so I was invited to a house. There's a party today. So I just wanted to give them some gift. So I went to the bookstall and, I just wanted some gift. And so she gave me this icon and a book she gave me as a gift. And and she said, "You just keep it." And as I came here, I met Robert, and I gave it to him. And again, we went back because he also wanted to go. And she gave me 2 more books as a gift. So I think, yeah, that's a sign of hospitality. Yeah,
Definitely.
to be generous.
That's very beautiful. So a hospitable church, it doesn't take much, right? All the things you guys said are like simple. Doesn't mean the greatest talks or like it means the little things. That was really nice. Okay, I'm going to share with you a test that someone did for a research to see the hospitality of the churches. I didn't actually look at the actual test, but it was shared in Father Anthony Messer's talk. But it was really nice. I think it makes a nice point. So there was a guy that visited 18 churches in consecutive Sundays. And he said this in the research. He said, I sat near the front. After the service, I would slow to the rear. I would walk slowly to the rear, sorry, I didn't miss that, and then back to the front and back down the aisle, and I smiled, and I always dressed neatly, and I always made the point to ask a question to someone. So he's just saying what he did in every single church of those, okay? So he made sure that he's visible, if that makes sense, and he reaches out for someone. And he had a point system. So if a person from the congregation smiles, they take 10 points. If someone greets him, another 10 points for that church. An exchange of names is 100 points. Introduction to another church member is 1,000 points. Invitation to meet the priest is 2,000 points. So pretty big if you get them to meet the priest. An invitation to return again is 200 points. How much do you think those churches scored? 10 points. Sadly, do you guys want to guess? It's actually very sad. So the results from that study, 11 out of 18 got less than 100, which means they didn't introduce to another person, didn't even invite for a coffee or exchange names. So that's very easy stuff. And then 5 got less than 20. So on a good note, I want to just say something because I think of it as the positive note. It actually shows you that everything counts. If you think that everything has points, so a smile is not wasted. It has points. So that's a nice way to look at it. But sometimes, and that's what Father Anthony was saying, sometimes churches have lovely fellowship. Like he's saying, when I stop the sermon, it's not like people are not talking and it's like, shh. No, people talk. They have good fellowship with each other. But sometimes we don't have good hospitality. So welcoming a stranger, noticing who's alone, noticing who's new, noticing who would God reach out to if he was in that room. So sometimes something to think about. If someone comes to our church, what point will we get? And I'm not in a negative way, but think of it as this way. We are the church. So how we welcome strangers can give us points, if that makes sense. It's not the goal to make points, but to follow the commandment. So you and I can change the score for our church if we all are attentive to the strangers around us, not just the newcomers, but the ones who feel like strangers in our community. Yes, and just another point to that, I think I mentioned at the beginning, but yeah, keeping an eye that not just the newcomers to welcome, but I think there is a lot of people around us. Like even in the youth service, it's very sad. Like I came from Egypt, but since I came, there was people that were in the church. They were not strangers, but because they felt estranged, they became strangers. You don't come anymore. So I think something to also keep in mind that the stranger sometimes is the one actually with me since I grew up. Sometimes they feel like strangers. So, okay, last point we'll make, and then we're getting to the end. So, now that we know that welcoming strangers, the service of love, everything is really good. Do we all do it? Do we? So now we know that we should welcome strangers, we should serve, we should notice. But is it sorry. But is it that easy? You have to make an effort. Yep. So it is. So the service of love is hard. What else? What stops people, if we know that this is all good stuff and we know it from Sunday school, practically, why did all these churches not score? Why do we not find a lot of hospitable people around us? Or serving the
People are just used to the familiar. They find unfamiliar scary.
yes, the fear to trust strangers, yeah?
Because me myself is a stranger.
Yep. You feel like you yourself are a stranger, so you don't reach out for another stranger. Yeah.
We are very self-centered, so
Yeah.
we just come to church with our problems and our needs, and we don't think about others.
Definitely. Being self-centered. Yep.
We create like expectation or previous expectation, like maybe when like we will welcoming them, they will interfere in my life.
Yes.
They will have like extender. We will like break the borders, so they will come like deeply in my personal life. So we like
Afraid
create
to let people
expectation.
in. Yep.
Yeah, expectation which it will put like borders.
Yep. You don't want to let people in. Anything else? No, it's all very good. I think at the end, sometimes love and service leads us to the picture here, the cross. So because of love and because of God's heart, he was nailed on the cross. So love is not easy. Love leads to the cross. So as a fact, it's not easy. It's not convenient. We do have a lot of fear, though. We fear that people will take advantage of us. We fear that people will waste our time. Like the monks, they were scared that if they stop for that person that needs help, they're gonna waste time from meeting God, while God was just right there. We say we're very busy, and we fear giving to strangers. We fear because we think sometimes there's nothing coming back or whatever. There was a sermon by Abuna Dawud Lamay that was really nice. It's in Arabic, but it was saying, "Do not fear to love." And that's the title here. He's saying, God says, "Do not fear" many times in the Bible, and part of it is, "Do not fear to follow my words." So, do not fear to love. Do not fear to give, because it's not wasted. Sometimes, also, one of the things I also wanted to mention is fearing like I have nothing to offer. I'm feeling like I am a stranger myself, and I'm not ready to serve someone else. But I think a reminder for that reason is that test that we saw. Even a smile counts. Sometimes we just feel like nothing will count. But if you see it from a point system on the other side, God is counting that smile. God is counting all those little things. If someone has that fear, I actually don't have a slide on this, but if someone has that fear to serve, what would you say? If you have that fear, what would you say to that? Fear of like giving, fear of loving, fear of reaching out.
I'll probably just remind them of Jonah. He's probably the perfect example in this case. He didn't want to do anything. He actually did everything possible to stay away from it. But then God, we know what happened 3 days in the tummy of the whale. And because of him, the whole of the people of Nineveh are saved.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a bit sad at even after they were saved, he was a little bit sad. But again, the story obviously teaches us that at the end of the day, God loves us, and he wants us to also love others.
Definitely.
And be happy for others people's salvation.
Definitely. Yeah, it's not easy, because I think in that sermon, Abuna Dadlami said a point: if you grew up in a house where your mom is always saying, "Be careful of that person, be careful of that, they're going to use you," when you have that mentality, it's very hard to reach out. All right, so only 2 slides. I'm really sorry. I think I took forever, but it's hard to read. Okay, I'll just explain. So, this is a passage that I wanted to conclude like towards the end with. There's a book called Love is a Choice by Gary Graham. I don't know if you guys know him. You know the one who wrote the 5 love languages? The 5 languages of love? Yes, you guys know that book? Anyway, he's a very known writer, and he's Christian as well. So he had a book called Love is a Choice, where it's a very easy read, but stories of very hard situations. and they show you that someone chose to love and it made a difference. So this story, I read that book a couple of years ago, but this story actually stayed with me. So I'll summarize it. So she's a lady that was married, had no kids, and she was had early retirement. And then few new neighbors moved in next to them. Anyways, what she says in the story is that there's a little kid from the neighbors. She's a stranger there. She doesn't know her. She comes in her backyard. And then she's like, can you play with me? And then she's like, okay. And then she played with her a bit and she's like, okay, go home. I'm busy. And then she's like, but can you do this for me? And she's like, I'm busy. And then she made her go. And then she came again. Like what you said, the fear that people would keep coming. And the girl kept coming every single day to play with her. And she's like, I'm busy. She started to be frustrated. And she kept asking God, it's like, I don't even know her. Like, I feel bad for thinking this way, but she's busy. And this girl is she doesn't, who is she? Until one day, the girl kept coming and playing for a bit, and she was trying to get rid of her. Until one day, the girl ran, and then her sister came and knocked on the door. She's like, I can't find my sister. And she got scared. She actually started to love her, I think. And then she ran and found the girl. And the girl was crying. Later on, I think she realizes the mom is always working. The girl feels like a stranger herself. And she started to love her. And anyways, it goes on that she started to love her interruptions. She started to accept her inconvenience. And after years, and then she asked her, can you be my godmother? I don't have a godmother. And she accepts to be her godmother. And then it goes back, the end of the story, that she walked her to her formal instead of her own parents. But that's what it says in a comment. So I'll just read it because I don't know if you can see it. Sometimes love comes, you can say love or service. Love comes in unexpected packages, at surprising places, and even at inconvenient times. We might be tempted to respond with impatience, frustration, and even rudeness, but those aren't the responses of a caring heart. As Laurie discovered, perhaps one of the keys to finding an enduring affection is to just be willing to accept the interruptions and intrusions. As we keep our minds and hearts open to relationship possibilities, we might receive gifts and blessings that we never dreamed attainable. Who knows? We might even discover that our lives have even been delightfully changed. So that's the concept when we fear interruptions. It was not convenient. It doesn't cancel that it was hard. It was not convenient, but it was really not wasted. It was very beautiful at the end. And then this part is actually very nice. Sorry, I'm reading. Are we going okay with time? I'm so sorry. But this is really nice. This is Gary Graham's comment on the story. Perhaps you're thinking, I could do this if I were retired, but my time is needed to meet the needs of my own family. However, if you have children, one of the greatest things you can do for them is to give them a model of serving others. If you are a single adult caught up in meeting your own goals, consider adding the goal of taking opportunities to help others. Have you had an interruption in the past months that you dismissed because in your mind you were too busy to help? Will you ask God to help you to see interruptions as opportunities to express His love through you? So that was very nice. So I think this is a very practical story. She just welcomed a stranger next to her. And again, we're almost done. Sorry. It's never wasted. I think we have fear to give, and I do struggle with that. That's why I think this talk was good for me. But remember, it's never wasted. There was a story, someone told me another story. I'm so sorry. So there was a preacher. So I think it was in a book, and someone was sharing it with me. So there was a preacher who used to go to coffee shops and just give people Bibles as a gift. But one time, this coffee shop, he gave the barista, lady, a Bible, and then he gave her $50 as well. And he just doesn't know her, and then he left. But he's just doing the same thing. He's just helping strangers. And then after years, he come to that same coffee shop. He obviously doesn't remember. But that lady runs to him, and she's saying, do you remember me? He's like, I don't know. I go to many coffee shops. He's like, I'm the one that you gave me a Bible and $50. He's like, he can't remember. And she's like, you don't understand. The day you gave me that, my husband was taken into prison for something. And when you gave me those, I went straight and gave him the $50 and the Bible. And that completely changed his life. Like, I don't know if he like read the Bible in that time, and now he's out and he's serving and he's a Christian. She said a really nice sentence that maybe like towards the end we want to conclude with. She said, "My husband might never know you or meet you, but I know that he will welcome you in heaven with a Bible and $50. That story, in essence, is the idea that it's not wasted, even those the Bible and $50. So, with that verse, do not lay up your treasures, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, and where the thief breaks in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth or rust destroys. So, everything you do is not wasted. It's not unseen. It's saved and remembered by God. And that's the last slide. This is St. John Chrysostom commenting on Abraham. Abraham's hospitality. He did not ask who they were nor where they came from, but simply welcomed them. Therefore, he entertained angels unawares. And that's the story I wanted to just like finish with. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Uncle was saying that there's people that feel strange by their sins. So someone told me this story the other week. So there's a lady that they know. So she did a really public sin at the church, and then she felt rejected by her church. And then she started to move to other churches. And she came to that church and she was really even struggling spiritually to return to God. And she was telling that lady, the thing that really helped me to see God's love was that there was a lady at church that used to just invite her for dinner frequently for 3 months, and she asked no questions. She doesn't know her past, she doesn't know anything. She just welcomed her. And that's what returned that lady to God. So I think you don't need to know. Sometimes when they're strangers, you want to know where they're from, you want to know their story, you want to know everything, but to simply just welcome them because you want to welcome them, you don't need to know their past. That was really nice. I thought that story was very nice. And what you said, like someone is feeling like she saw her had tears in her eyes in the church, and all she did is just invite her home. She didn't need to know why she's crying. So yeah, that's the last story. And that last quote, the house of a Christian should be a common refuge for those in need, which is what you and Samuel were sharing. That's it. And glory be to God forever. Amen. Do you guys have any comments or discussions?
Like getting to be hospitable or showing love, you step out in faith. There's an element of doing it as unto the Lord. You actually make that effort and do it and give it in God's hands. There's an element of faith there. You step out in faith, like meeting people and talking to people. You've got to make that step in faith. That's what I was thinking anyway.
Not do it without, I think they all come together. Faith and love, like Mother Teresa said. You have faith that it's not wasted and that you're doing it for God. If you don't, you lose endurance to keep doing it, right? Because I think love without faith, we can lose endurance sometimes when there's nothing coming back.